Welcome to Deep Cyber's weekly cybersecurity briefing. Here's what's unfolded over the past week. This week, every story points to the same uncomfortable truth. The tools we trust most, our identities, our platforms, our AI systems, are becoming the attack surface, and we are not keeping pace with what that means. Let's start with a story about identity. Not a corporate identity, a person's. Federal prosecutors have charged a New York man with cyberstalking after he allegedly used artificial intelligence to generate fake nude images of a Georgia college student and spread them across the internet. He reportedly built multiple fake social media profiles to distribute those images alongside fabricated racist messages, all designed to look like they came from the victim herself. This is what happens when powerful technology meets zero accountability. The victim had no connection to any of it, yet her identity was weaponized against her. Deepfake tools that once required serious technical skill are now accessible to almost anyone, and the law is struggling to catch up. The practical question for every organization is this: if a private individual can be this thoroughly impersonated, what does that mean for your executives, your brand, and your people? From identity as a weapon, we move to infrastructure as one. In a major international operation called Operation Endgame, law enforcement and private cybersecurity companies dismantled a criminal network known as SocGholish, rescuing more than 15,000 compromised WordPress websites in the process. Investigators shut down 106 command and control servers that criminals had been using to silently hijack legitimate websites and trick visitors into downloading malware, often disguised as a fake browser update. WordPress powers roughly 40% of all websites on the internet. That concentration alone makes it an irresistible target. The site owners whose platforms were hijacked had no idea their websites were being used as launchpads against their own visitors. If your business runs a website, and most do, ask yourself honestly, when did you last verify that your platform had not been quietly recruited into someone else's criminal operation? The SocGholish network exploited the fact that defenders were slow to notice. That lag time is exactly what the next story is trying to eliminate. A significant shift is underway in how organizations defend themselves, moving away from AI that assists human analysts toward what experts are calling Agentic AI, systems that can independently investigate alerts, make decisions, and take defensive action without waiting for human approval at every step. The reason this matters is stark. Attackers currently lurk inside company networks for an average of 43 days before anyone notices. Modern enterprise security teams are juggling 40 or more separate tools, each generating its own stream of alerts that rarely talk to one another. Agentic AI can compress a response timeline from hours or days down to seconds. But the real tension here is trust. How much autonomy are you prepared to give a machine making consequential decisions about your business, especially when the cost of a wrong move could be significant? That question of misconfigured trust takes on a different dimension in our next story. Security researchers discovered a serious vulnerability in FIFA's broadcasting infrastructure that could have allowed attackers to hijack live World Cup video streams watched by hundreds of millions of people worldwide. The flaw was not in Microsoft's software itself. It was in how FIFA had configured Microsoft Entra ID, a cloud-based identity and access management system, leaving access controls essentially unenforced. This is a pattern that keeps appearing across industries. Powerful security tools, poorly implemented. Organizations invest in enterprise-grade technology and then leave the door open because the configuration work was never completed properly. The stakes here were enormous. A global audience, a high-profile event, and back-end systems potentially exposed to anyone who found the gap. The takeaway is direct. Owning a security tool is not the same as using it, and configuration is where most of the real risk lives. FIFA's misconfigured identity controls point to a broader problem that is accelerating fast inside businesses right now. Security firm Token Security is raising the alarm about AI agents, autonomous software programs that can browse the web, access databases, send emails, and interact with critical business systems entirely on their own. The problem is that most organizations are granting these agents broad permissions with little oversight, treating them like simple tools rather than what they actually are: full digital identities that can be compromised. When a human employee joins a company, there are processes in place to control what they can access and monitor what they do. AI agents are largely receiving none of that scrutiny. If an attacker compromises an AI agent, they inherit everything that agent has permission to reach, and in many organizations that is quite a lot. Experts are urging businesses to apply the same identity and access management principles used for human employees directly to their AI systems. The question to ask your team this week: do you even have a complete list of every AI agent currently operating inside your organization? If AI agents represent a blind spot in how organizations manage access, the next story reveals a blind spot in how they monitor communication. A new survey shows that half of cybersecurity leaders are not confident in their ability to detect attacks happening through workplace collaboration platforms, tools like Slack and Microsoft Teams that now sit at the center of how most businesses operate. Attackers have noticed that defenses on these platforms are far weaker than those around email, and they have shifted tactics accordingly, using chat tools to send malicious links, impersonate colleagues, and manipulate employees into sharing sensitive credentials. Decades of investment have made email one of the most heavily monitored channels in any organization. Workplace chat is relatively new to that conversation, and the gap is showing. With remote and hybrid work making these tools central to daily operations, the risk is no longer theoretical. Extending your threat detection beyond the inbox is no longer optional. It's overdue. And behind every tool, every alert, and every misconfigured system, there are people, and those people are struggling. Recent findings reveal that Chief Information Security Officers, CISOs, and their teams are under pressure from two compounding directions: an accelerating threat landscape and the rapid rise of artificial intelligence that simultaneously helps defenders and arms attackers. Burnout is growing. Traditional roles are becoming obsolete. New skill sets are in demand, and organizations that cannot afford full-time security staff are turning to contract and part-time experts just to fill critical gaps. This is the human side of a technology crisis. The professionals responsible for protecting sensitive data and critical systems are being asked to do more, faster, with less certainty about what comes next. The workforce models that served cybersecurity a decade ago were not designed for this environment. The question worth sitting with is this: is the way your organization supports its security team actually proportionate to the threats it is facing? Step back and look at all 7 stories together, and the theme is unmistakable. Trust is the vulnerability. Trust in identity, personal and digital. Trust in platforms we assume are being watched. Trust in tools we assume are configured correctly. Trust in AI systems we assume are under control. And trust that the people protecting us have everything they need to do the job. None of those assumptions are safe to make right now. The organizations that will come through this period are the ones treating trust not as a default, but as something that has to be earned, verified, and continuously maintained. Before you go, if this briefing gave you useful insight this week, follow Deep Cyber wherever you're listening. A rating or comment helps the right people discover the show. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening, stay safe, and we'll be back next week with more cybersecurity updates.